All right, welcome guys. This session, I know the title outside says Blending the Web with the Platform. We kind of wanted to call it Blending the Web with Windows so you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
So you're in the right spot. Don't worry about the title. I'm Kevin Hill. I'm a program manager on the web apps team.
And I'm Jeff Bertoft, and I'm a program manager in developer evangelism.
All right, so today we're going to talk a little bit about blending the web with Windows, Jeff.
That's right. Kevin, start us off. Tell us a little bit about what we mean when we say blending the web with Windows.
Well, it's a good question. You know, I've been playing a lot with making some website code for and publishing on Azure websites. Any Azure website users? I got some hands. All right, good. And thinking this workflow is great. I'm getting all my features out, getting them out quickly. When we talk about blending the web, I got to assume we want to light up some platform features.
Right.
But I think I'm really loving what I do. Why would I want to do that?
So most of us here are probably web developers, or we use the web in some portion of our development cycle. There's a cajillion websites.
A cajillion websites? How do you know there's a cajillion websites?
Well, I counted them last night.
Last night.
Yeah, that's as far as I could get. But we know there's a whole lot of websites out there. We already have assets. We already have code written. We already have a workflow for developing and publishing websites. So we want to be able to honor the work that we've already done and take that a step further and use those websites, those web apps, to integrate with the platform, light up features, and then also turn them into store applications as well, and be able to take advantage of other features on the operating system.
I like the sound of that, Jeff. I got to wonder, though, what's Microsoft doing with web apps?
So Microsoft's HTML5 and JavaScript platform has been around for years. We have HTML5 and JavaScript in just about every product that we build. If you want to write an app for Office, you do it in JavaScript. If you want to write an app for the Xbox, you do it in JavaScript. Today we talked about the phone, bringing the web development environment directly to the phone. Of course, Windows, embedded devices, just about any development environment we have, JavaScript and HTML5 is a language that you can use to write apps there. And we don't just talk about using it as a platform for writing apps. It's one of the primary ways that we deliver applications.
I think it's great, Jeff, yeah, because there's a lot of times I'm using apps. I never think about the technology behind them.
Right.
I actually think I might have a slide that shows a few of the apps that Microsoft's written in HTML5.
Bring it up. So the idea is you don't want your users to know what language they're using. It shouldn't matter whether your app is written in C++, whether it's written in C#, or whether it's written in JavaScript and HTML5. So the apps that we have on the screen here are just a sampling of some of the Microsoft apps that are written in JavaScript. So you'll see things like Skype there, the Bing Fitness app.
Bing Fitness app's great. I use it all the time to count calories.
Yeah, and you should never need to know whether that is written in one language or another. The idea is that we have a robust HTML5 JavaScript environment that allows you to write high-quality, high-performing apps on Windows platforms.
And it's on the phone, on Xbox, even Windows Embedded.
Yeah, everywhere.
HTML5 everywhere. I like the sound of that.
But let's not forget about the web in the browser. That's the first place we want to start.
Well, and that's why I'm writing the website on Azure website. So I think I was going to actually take a little bit of time and show some of the things I was learning that I can do on my website with just adding a little bit of metadata. So I had a chance to play with Azure websites, some awesome technology. I wrote an AngularJS app that's running a Node server on the back end. Very lightweight app. I'm calling it's my lunchtime app. It's actually how I remember to eat lunch today. Oftentimes I forget to eat lunch when I'm at my desk typing on the computer, so I thought I'm going to make an app that's going to help remind me.
I was really glad that Kevin wrote this app. I was getting tired of his phone calls asking if it was lunchtime yet.
Right.
So now he can figure that out for himself.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but when you walked through this door, we actually moved to Atlanta. That's why we're about 2,000 miles away from all the restaurants here locally in California. I'm sure somebody was going to notice that in my demo, so I just mentioned.
Just a point, you can't always trust the geodata that you get back from a browser.
So opportunity for me to make my app a little bit more robust. The first thing I was going to show is actually quite cool. I'm just going to show you what would happen if I pinned my website as it is today. I haven't really done anything. You can see if I pin it to my start screen, I get this blue tile. To me, that's not so exciting. So let me show you what we can do with a snippet, because if I had to type it, you'd be waiting a little bit. So I'm just adding some meta tags to say for each different tile size, I want to go use these pictures. I'm going to save that. Now, just making sure I unpinned it. If I want to go and repin the same site, ooh, Jeff, reload. Thank you. You're going to see these gorgeous images. So I have a big tile. Of course, I'm going to use the big tile. So now if I've pinned that, it doesn't really look like that IE tile anymore. It looks a little bit more like an app tile.
Yeah.
Right? But we don't need to stop there. I'm going to add a little data. So I'll have a live tile. There's a couple different ways to do this. Actually, I was going to show, we have a website that you can go to that will help you build some of these meta tags, and there's a little bit of GUI that you can go and make your images if you want to do that, if you don't want to type the code by hand. Buildmypinsites.com. If you have an RSS feed, it will actually produce a meta tag that will pull information from your RSS feed off your website. For my Node server example, I just made a tile.xml file. There's not really much to the tile.xml file. We have a templating system that's pretty well documented on MSDN. You can look at the various templates you might want to use to light up your tiles. All right, so let me save that. I'm going to refresh my page. I'm going to go ahead and unpin this. Pin again, I still have the same tiles. Sometimes it takes a second to download the metadata. But you can see that now I'm getting a notification from my website. And I had different templates for each tile size. You don't have to do them for all tile sizes. But if I go medium, then it's a slightly different template. That one actually didn't pull the text down, but it will eventually. If I go back to my large tile, there I've got my large tile template pulling data down. There's still yet one other thing I can do just with adding metadata to my web page. Mm-hmm. So the share charm in Windows actually uses the same metadata markup that you would use if you were going to add Open Graph images for sharing on Facebook. So if somebody pastes the URL on Facebook, it generates the image and the text. It'll pull from this. This is the same thing that Windows will use to do sharing. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. Go ahead and refresh. And now if I want to do a share from my web page to another app within Windows, it should pull across the image, and then also the information that I entered into my site, like the title and also the description of my application. So I think that's a really good feature. And then in Windows, I actually use sharing quite a bit, so I can share in Mail. I could actually even share it to Facebook. It looks like it didn't actually pull all the metadata there, but I can share to other apps in Windows, and it should be pulling across the same information in all of those apps. So with just adding a little bit of metadata to my web page, I was able to turn on all those features in Windows. And the live tile with Windows Phone 8.1 works on the phone as well.
Now, you had already had some metadata on your page for other operating systems, for iOS and Android?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of web developers we know are adding metadata to the web pages today. And so you can see I've got some common metadata in there to support also pinning this tile to an iPhone or an iPad. And so it's really, we see this as just, adding that extra metadata to light up your website or app on Windows.
Awesome. So basically, if you already have a workflow, if you're already doing this for other platforms, doing metadata for iOS and Android, adding the Windows metadata doesn't look like too much work. So when you're done here, you basically have an app or a web app that acts like an application, right? It has live tiles, it has different tile sizes for the user to choose from, and it has, you can define the share content for it as well, so it can share. So for a lot of users, or in a lot of cases, that may be as far as you need to go. You may want to integrate your web app with Windows to that point, and it may provide the user experience that you want for your customers. But if you want to take it a step further, we're going to talk a few minutes about taking that same web app and turning it into a Windows or a Windows Phone Store application. Now, the obvious question is, why would you want to do this? What's the value of taking your web app and submitting it to the store? Well, the primary, I guess, the obvious one is for discoverability. You already have your users who are looking on the web and finding your app. Well, there's a lot of users who are going to the store first to find an application. And you want your web app to be there in the store as well. Wherever they're looking, you want to be there for them. The second thing is you may be in a corporate environment, in an enterprise environment where you're managing apps, where you're using a system like Intune to add applications or remove applications for particular users, or customizing start screens for different types of employees. Well, when your app is a store app, then your web app can be managed right alongside it. It can be added, removed, changed, updated in the background, all without the user having to do anything, all done by the enterprise management. So the third reason is monetization. You may want to charge for your app. You may want to do some in-app purchases. When you move into a store app, you have that.
Yeah, the commerce sounds great.
Yeah, the commerce engine built right in there, and it's really easy to use, really easy to attach to your application. And then we're going to talk some about capabilities here in a minute, but capabilities is a very big reason for moving your web app into a store app. If you want to use APIs that are available in WinRT in the operating system, available to store apps, many of them aren't available to web apps. So if you want to be able to use them in your application, you'll bring that over to a store app. And then last but not least, you may want to combine your web app with native code. So one of the things that you can do when you're a store application, if you want to write part of your app in JavaScript and part of it in C++ or part of it in C#, you can do that. And you can include different projects in one solution, and then they're all delivered to the user as a single application. So what we're going to do now is, if you can flip over to my screen there, Kevin.
So while you were talking, Jeff, I actually pushed all my changes live to the server.
Good.
I noticed you had local hosts sitting there, and I think we should actually demo this live.
You think so?
I think we should do it. It wouldn't be a real demo if we didn't do it live.
All right. Well, let me talk you through what we're going to do. I'm going to take Kevin's website here, and I'm going to add some capabilities to it. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to move it into a store application. So I'm going to grab this URL, and then I have a project here, and you'll see this is a unified project that has both Windows and Windows Phone.
Yeah, we've been hearing a bit
components.
about the unified projects today.
Yeah. And then inside of there, the only thing I have in here is a web view. So for those of you who don't know, the web view is a component that we have available inside of the HTML5 and JavaScript apps that basically gives us a window into the web. So in this case, I'm going to point to it, a hosted application, to something on the web, but I can also point to files that are local as well. And the idea is the rest of this application is just a JavaScript application. It's a Windows Store JavaScript application. So everything I'm going to be writing here today is in JavaScript. And then this web view is going to point to Kevin's application. Now my hope is that I can...
Oh, this sounds great. It should just fire up.
It should just work, right? So when we're done here, Kevin will be able to submit this to the store and make that $1 million app he had been talking all about.
Oh, Jeff, where's my data?
Okay. So there's something wrong here. There's something missing. And one of the things that we need to consider whenever we're building store applications, you'll see I'm getting some errors here because I'm trying to make some calls on the page that aren't working. Now in this particular case, I want to use the geolocations, which is one of the few features that aren't available in the web view. And what I'm going to do to make that work is I'm actually going to have Kevin add a JavaScript file onto the server, and then I'm going to add one to the client. While he's doing that, I'm going to show you the file that he'll be adding on his end. So on the server, what I want to do is add a file that's going to create a beacon. Okay, and this beacon is really just a iframe.
Jeff, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted you to know my feature's live.
Your feature's live. Wow, wasn't that quick? So we're going to have an iframe here, and then we're going to be passing some data onto the URL of the iframe. And what's going to happen is every time I add to a query string parameter onto my URL, it's going to trigger an event on the client side. Now let's flip over and see what that's going to look like. So on this side, I have an event attached to the web view that's looking for the MS Web View frame navigation starting. Okay, so it's kind of a mouthful of an event. But every time I change a iframe inside of my hosted app, it triggers this event, and then I grab the URL from it, and I parse out the data that I need. Now, there's a number of ways that you can pass data back and forth between your hosted application and your client or your store app. If you are running HTTPS, then you actually have a window notification event that you can fire and pass data directly up to the app. You can use the URL of your application. In this case, I'm using an iframe because it's another component that I don't need to worry about catching it and canceling it in my app navigating to something I don't want it to. So whenever this event fires, I grab it, I'm going to parse the data on it, and then depending on what data I put on the end, I'll do some different functionality. So I'm going to go back to my page here, and right below my web view, I'm going to add some script files in. And I'll make a note here. You'll see I'm adding a Cordova file. The reason why I'm adding a Cordova file is because I figured the calls that I make on the server side in the file that Kevin's adding, I'm going to use the Cordova APIs for it. That way, if I want to do the same thing on Android or on iOS, the code is already there for me. Now, on this side, I'm adding my Cordova.js file to my JavaScript project, and then I'm adding this bridge file that's going to take the call from the web app and call it in the client app. So I'm basically taking the calls that don't exist inside of my web app, and I'm making them in the client. I'm passing them up and making them in the client.
So now I'm going to see data.
Now you're going to see data. Okay. Doesn't look like I have any of the
Well, you're really close to the restaurants.
Yeah. Let's try it one more time, see if it comes up.
All right, now you're in
there we
Atlanta again.
go. 2,000 miles from the nearest cafeteria is going to make for quite a lunch hour, I'm sure.
It's a tough walk.
So you can see here, we actually made this little iframe green, a little green square in the bottom here. And that's just kind of a visual cue that we added that iframe to pass the data. Normally, I would hide it, right? I would either give it a 0 height, width, or add opacity or display something to it so that it doesn't show up in the page. But in this case, we're going to leave it there. Now, what I want to do, now that we have this same app working as a store app, just like we had it on the web, I'm going to start adding some native features to it. So I'm going to move my app over here so we can see it. And open my desktop, and we're going to add some notifications to it. So Kevin, you had the files already. If you want to start getting those ready.
Yeah, let me integrate your feature, Jeff.
Now, one of the things I noticed is Kevin actually has a hard time opening his web browser to look at his app. And he's still calling me and asking me how long it is to lunch. So I actually want to add a feature to this that will prop a notification up to Kevin so that he doesn't even have to open his phone or open his app to see if it's time for lunch. It'll send up a notification and tell him how long he has till lunch starts. So to do that, let's see if I can make this window a little bigger. I'm actually going to add a script tag here. And I'm doing this just at the bottom of my main HTML page. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add that same event because I'm using that same beacon, that same iframe to pass data up. So I'm listening for the MS WebView frame navigation event. And when that fires, it's going to fire the code inside of here. And then I'm going to add a little bit of code to catch the beacon here. So it's basically looking to see if that data is a notification. If it's an event type of notification, then I know I want to pull that data and use it here. And if I flip over and show you what, here it is, Kevin's doing on the server, it's really simple. He is adding a event to a button, and when that button fires, it just passes some text up through the beacon. And it's going to go and grab whatever the timer text is at the time and pass it up. Okay, so last but not least, I'm going to throw some code in here to build this notification. And I basically went out to the MSDN quick start for notifications, copied the code out of there, and pasted it in here.
Did you have to make a lot of changes after you did that?
I had to make a few. Basically, I created the notification here, and then I updated the text for it right here, and I'm passing in the event data that I'm getting from that URL, added my image, and do we have those changes on the server?
They've been pushed live before you started talking.
Right, we finished, huh? Okay, so now what we're going to see here is the same application. I asked Kevin to add this button here so that we can kind of simulate lunchtime since we're a little past lunch. And you'll see what happens is when I click that button, it triggers the event, and it uses the native code I have in my application to fire off the notification. So I can do it again, add a couple of them. Tells me exactly how much time it is till lunch, or in this case, how much time has passed since lunch. It works on both your Windows 8 and your Windows Phone device. The same code works both places.
We're going to show them?
On the phone?
The phone.
I think I can do that.
You should show them on the phone.
All right, so
He hadn't actually planned to show you on the phone.
I
so
hadn't planned, but
He's going to do it.
since he asked. All right, let's fire that up on the phone there. You'll see all I did is change my startup project, and it opened the phone emulator. Oh,
Oh. He's going to do it one more time.
let's try it one more time.
The second time's the charm.
I always have to warn people, this is a pre-release software here, so it doesn't always work the first time. Or the second time, huh?
Was it the third time that was really the charm?
Let's try it and see. Looks like it's not making a connection to the server. Well, I do have another example of how to show you how that works. I'm going to kind of put it in a real scenario here with Partner. Now, I'm sure all of us in this room before have heard of Expedia. Expedia.com is a great website for finding travel deals. They kind of specialize in those last-minute travel deals. And one of the things that they have is on their website, I'm going to go ahead and fire this up. They have a button that you can go and press and find out what deals are near you right now. So you can say, hey, what are the deals for tonight? And that button will come up and it'll show you what the deals are that night. Now, Expedia has put a lot of energy into getting their mobile site up and running on Windows devices. And this is actually a version of their web app that isn't even published yet. But they put a lot of time and energy to make sure that their web apps work on Windows devices. Now, what they're able to do in this scenario is take that a step further and get more out of the investment that they've made. They've already published their web app, so now they've taken it and they've wrapped it in a store app. And we have a few added features that we add in there. Now, here's the button I was telling you about where you can click it and get the nearby hotels, and my emulator still thinks I'm in Redmond, Washington, but that's okay. And it's going to show you the hotel deals for that night, right? Well, what we've done is we've actually added some notification code here to, instead of having the users go to their app to find out what the deals are, it'll use both notifications and geolocations to know when you're outside your city, and then when it does, it'll actually pop up a notification for you and tell you that there's deals in the city where you are. You click that, and it opens you right up to the deals page. So they're able to do this exact same scenario where the majority of the app functionality is on their web app. It's the same thing that they're using for their mobile users, but then they wrap it in a store app. They put it into this container with the web view, and they can write native features on top of it to be able to do things they've always wanted to do on the web, but they don't have APIs for yet.
That's highly desirable. I mean, shipping features on the web using the super fast workflows I have today with Azure Website's GitHub integration,
Right.
which is how I've been pushing all this code up today, live. At least my code pushing hasn't had an issue. That's been great. But yeah, I can see how this is highly desirable. I've got my app in the store now. I'm able to pop through some of the features of the platform, like push notifications, but I can still add code and features on my website.
Right. It's a way for you to kind of honor the workflow that you already have. The investments that you've already made into your mobile sites can get you farther in Windows by reusing them in your app. So I have one more thing that I want to show you here. From working with partners over the years and helping them, some of the partners with really incredible web apps, helping them bring them over to the Windows Store, we realized that we're starting to write features over and over again. So on Windows, we realized everyone needs a back button, because when you're in a browser, you have a back button. When you're in a store app, you have no Chrome at all, so you don't have a back button or forward button. So we're building that. Navigation. Generally, apps like to use the Windows 8 navigation when they're at an app because users expect to find app bars and nav bars. Charm integration, pinning of tiles, live tiles, all these features are ones that we have requests for over and over.
Yeah, it'd be great, Jeff, if there's something that could help me out with that, because it sounds like there's a lot of experience in writing this code and integrating this web code I have into the platform.
I'm happy to tell you there is. So
I'm glad.
The tool that I have in front of me here is called the Web App Template. It's an open source project that we released a little while ago, and we just pushed a new version up yesterday. You'll actually be hearing about this a little more in the keynote tomorrow, so this is a little bit of a preview for it. But what it is it's a Visual Studio template that you can install, and then you would basically go and start a new project. So if I do a new project, I'll have a new project type called Web App Template, okay? So I open that up, and I have a new Visual Studio project that has some of the template files already created for me. And one of those files is a config file, all right? And for you savvy web developers out there will realize this is just a JSON file. So what we're doing is we're taking the URL of your web app and some metadata about your web app. So everything from how you want to handle errors to how you want to configure your share charms, what you want to do when you're offline, any additional JavaScript or CSS that you want to inject.
It feels a lot like my package.json file that I'm using to install all the things I need with Node.
It does. We're trying to kind of carry on that same user patterns that we have in the web world today. So we configure all this, and then whenever you run it, your web app becomes a store app. And it has all those features. I didn't actually have to write any of this code because the tool will generate it for me. So it has the navigation. If I want to pin this particular page to my start screen, I can do that. Select different
You got
images.
the tiles.
Got the tiles. And it'll pin it to my start screen, so when I click on that pin, it'll open directly to this page. Charm integration with sharings and settings and all those things that you would need if you were a store app. None of this was code that I wrote. It was just configured from the tool. Now, the great thing about it is a JavaScript project. It kind of gets you started, and it's a template for a reason because it's kind of where we want you to start and build on top of that. So this is an opportunity. It's a JavaScript project. You open it up and run it, and then you can start writing your additional native features on top of it.
There's JavaScript everywhere. I've got JavaScript on my front end, JavaScript on back end, JavaScript to bring it to Windows.
That's right. Now, how's your app coming?
You know
Any
what?
changes there?
Yeah, while you were talking, I actually pushed up a new feature, which might be quite interesting, being that we're in Atlanta. You know, I have a Fitbit, and I try and track my steps.
Okay.
So I thought, why wouldn't we want to see maybe how many steps it would be to these restaurants? Because maybe I choose a restaurant not just based on the food, but based on meeting my 13,000 step goal per day.
Good for you, and it's definitely helping there. You look great. So Kevin added a feature, right? And this is normal to happen. You're going to have features that you want to add to your website all the time. And that's one of the great aspects of the web, is that you can, oh, sorry. Switch back over to Windows. So you can add a feature to your web app and push it out, and it's just going to be there, right? Every time your user goes to the website, if you push a new feature out, they're going to get that new feature. We love that about the web. So when you reuse that inside of your app,
We might want to refresh. I think we got the 0 mile bug.
that's not going to
It would be 0
take you
steps.
very far. Okay. All right, so he pushed this feature out where I can change from miles to steps.
5,097,000 steps.
So I think if I chose Cafe 50 here for 5 million steps,
I think I'm done for the
you're done
century.
for the day, right? You can get the cheeseburger, you can get the
I can eat whatever I want.
milkshake, whatever you want. You've burned that off. But it's a good example of a feature that he added on his web app. And when you're reusing that app as a store app, your store app users are going to inherit that feature without you ever making a change, ever pushing a change to the store. So we have another real life example.
Yeah, Jeff and I have orchestrated the demo. For the most part, I think it's gone okay. But we wanted to bring a partner up on the stage that's actually taken their app, use the technology that Jeff was showing, and tell us a little bit about their experience. So I'm going to invite Klaus up from Symbaloo.
Klaus's company has built their store app out recently, released it to the Windows Store using the web app template.
We did. Maybe it's good you could show a picture of it, because not everybody will know what Symbaloo is. And first of all, why is he dressed with a jacket? Yes, I'm a CEO, and all the other guys are doing the new release of the new version, so they're working hard. So they said, you're the only guy that can code, so you have to go over there. We had a great cooperation with Microsoft after a year where the marketing guys were struggling, because we were in Tiles already 7 years ago. Before Apple, we had a CTO, which is still the founder and still a big shareholder, and he said, if everything's going to be touch, we need Tiles to navigate. So when the youngsters came on and invited us to do an app, we said, well, we know how to do tile navigation. We do this for 7 years. So there was a, let's say, marketing, who's more important thing, the little guys that do it for 7 years, or the big guys that really came into this market too. And we were very happy Microsoft came into, because for us, it was really clear, and we, after a year struggling with the marketing, we have decided to back off as marketing guys and ask the guys on the back end, what is the best thing for our users? And we needed 3 things. First of all, it needed to be native. Symbaloo is free for everybody. We got 3.5 million users, and we're growing really fast because the whole state's going to use it for their resource management for education. State of New York, 3.5 million students, and 250,000 teachers going to use one white label. But the only way we make money if we give for free is that if you click on a tile, then it has to come from us, and if you buy something at Amazon or you buy a ticket at Expedia, we get some commission. So we need it to be native. That's one thing. The other thing, we have 3.5 million users, which we made a big promise. You will always navigate the same way on any device. Doesn't matter what kind of device you have, if it's from Microsoft, Apple, or whatever kind of company, Symbaloo works always the same. On your phone, on your tablet, on your computer, but also in the future on your TV. So Microsoft had a different idea, because they believe swiping and from left and right should be the way to navigate. So finally we had a sort of merge of both ways to navigate. So now you can go in 2 ways. The Symbaloo user that never had a Windows 8, never been on Windows 8, will find their way exactly the way we're used to. And a Windows 8 user that never has been on Symbaloo will just use the Windows 8 ways, and they find the same their way. That was a huge thing for us, and when we solved that, then it was an investment, because you can only invest time once. And we have so much as a small company on our plate. We have so many great ideas still to do, to fulfill, and we already have an Android platform to maintain, and they need an Android guy, and we need a guy for Apple. So we were waiting for the right timing to bring and do the investment for somebody to help us maintain Windows 8. Until I think they came up with a great help, and to keep it as much native as we can use our code. And we just, with the cooperation we had, I think we save not only now by building it a lot of time, but also in the future we save a lot of time, because it's 80-90% is our code. So, but just putting a shell around it, we achieved three things. First of all, Bose navigation systems on usability were respected. We had our native tiles, so we could get our revenue model from Expedia to get a little commission if somebody buys a ticket. And thirdly, we had a huge saving in not only building it, but also maintaining it. And normally when you have a thing like this and you give it out to the developers, you hear those guys and they say, and you get a lot of complaints, and every Monday meeting when we are talking to each other, how's things going? Yeah, good, yeah, fine. Then either something is really wrong or things go really well. And something is in between. So I let it go for a couple of weeks, and after a couple of weeks, I think it took us finally 2 months, but it's a couple of weeks, we were already 80% there. Then the nitty-gritty things comes, and you don't want to take risks. We got a lot of users, and you want to make sure that everything works well. So we recently put it out in the store, and I think from a financial point of view, we're very happy. From an organizational point of view, we're very happy. The guys never complained, so that means it's good news. And I think finally there was a kind of trust between the two companies, even writing each other code or improving. Our API is really good too, of course. This is recorded, I said it. Yes, our API is good. So the guys, I had to promise that back home, that it's also thanks to our great API. Thank you. But I think we saved a lot of money, and that's where we helped each other. It took us a year from marketing, and the developers solved it in 2 months.
Wow.
By the way, New York is using it now it's a commercial. Guys, you have to give me 1 minute. You can use it for anything you white label, so you can have tile navigation on anything you develop, and the white label solution is free too. And we use the whole state of New York, so we can handle big projects, and we're aiming to go to 10 million this year, 10 million users, and it's a simple user interface, tile navigation, and some more companies have been successful on that.
You know, Klaus, I mean, we were talking last night a little bit, and I think you told a great story about, you know, the party you throw for teachers. I thought that might be a good thing to
Oh,
share.
yeah, well, that's the fun part. It's Russell Crowe. Remember the film Gladiator, where he got the advice, win the crowd. So when we came out to the United States with Symbaloo, we knew we were attractive for teachers, because teachers had the first touchscreens. They had these 3 smart boards in their classrooms. So we didn't know how to start, because we had no teachers, a couple of teachers using us. So we did a party 4 years ago with in a small bar, karaoke. You know, teachers are every day on stage, so they love to sing karaoke. And we saw them really getting drunk and singing all night. So after 4 years, and this is a secret, I don't know too many teachers are here, but after 4 years now, we have a party in Atlanta, which is ISTE. It's the biggest convention for teachers, 20,000 teachers on a convention, so presentations like this. And we throw a party where Google changed the date, because if 3,000 teachers go to playing with a live band, singing with karaoke still, because karaoke is the thing, with 2 karaoke stages, and sponsored by a lot of people. And marketing-wise, that's a simple rule from the Gladiator film: win the crowd, and the rest will follow. And that's how we got the state of New York, because they were so astonished that all the teachers were so happy about us and use us, and that's why suddenly top-down they understood it was a great way to share resources. What they do, they build on any tile, can link to another bunch of tiles. So you can say year 6 English, the month of November, good resources to use in classroom. Or you can go from all different angles. Everybody's using it the same. They have a white label, so they can have, with 5 clicks, I think you have 2.5 million resources on your mobile, tablet, and computer. This was a commercial. The rest is about development.
I think
By the way, I didn't have food. I had a couple of drinks with these guys, so I don't know what the whole development of the app was about. But it's they only have drinks, so it's.
Well, I think the one part you left out of your story was you almost broke Twitter, didn't you?
Oh yeah. Oh, that was big because the first time we organized it, and this year we're going to be #1 on Twitter for sure. But the first time we were trending on Twitter after Katy Perry, worldwide #2, because these teachers, they have a lot of followers. These are the social teachers, so they are in school, they were on Twitter, they're on Facebook, so they send it all around the world, and teachers have teachers following, but students following. So we were #2 tweeting with a party in San Diego about karaoke, worldwide trending on Twitter. And it's probably this year we're in Atlanta, which is in the Tabernacle. Is people here from Atlanta? And Tabernacle is really a great venue. It's where most artists are really happy to perform. So the whole venue is full with all kinds of events, and it's the big companies like Adobe and McGraw-Hill. They sponsor. But I can't say how many anymore because we sold it out as a sponsorship.
Awesome.
But thank you very much for helping us, and I think it's this whole new way we developed it together. It's a big saving, and it helped us a lot to get live quicker and in a better way. We're looking forward to promote it
Yeah.
more. That's
So
Yeah.
Symbaloo is a great example for us because there's a little bit of a story behind it. They have a fantastic app, right? They reuse their whole workflow to build their Windows 8 app. So this is their hosted app. Their website inside of a Windows Store app had some additional features to it. But one of the things is that the first time Symbaloo came to Microsoft about this, they actually failed our store certification.
Which we've changed.
Which we've changed. And one of the things from working with partners we realize is that there are a lot of partners out there who have these great web apps and they want to reuse them as store apps. So we actually had to work with Symbaloo and get a better idea of what they wanted to do, and we realized this was a really good thing for our platform. One of the things we mentioned in the beginning is HTML5 performs great on our platform. We've had a number of partners come to us and say, well, we've tried to do HTML5 on other platforms and it's just not ready yet. Well, partners are telling us that they have a better experience on Windows with that the Windows platform performs great for this type of approach. So we changed our store policies. And we changed it so that if you've got a web app, that web app can be a great Windows Store app. And we worked with Symbaloo to utilize the web app template. They wrote a few native components on top of it to have a really great persistent login experience and everything. And of course, their app passed the certification, is in the store now. So it was a really great learning experience for us as Microsoft to work with our partners to help them meet their needs, and in the end, produce a great new workflow, a great new process for a lot of developers.
I can tell you a secret. We had 3 times to apply for Apple to get it in the store. I'm not going to mention the word anymore. And finally, we withdraw it because they didn't want to do it natively. And so I have to give you a compliment because finally we give it as a native app, and because we need to be a native app, otherwise our model doesn't work.
Yeah.
So we don't have an app for Apple because we're first in tiles, so they have to listen to us. We're Dutch, so that helps too.
And we'll have Klaus available at the end for any questions that you might have for him as well. So we've talked about today, and I think we've got a slide for this. We've talked today about being able to honor the workflow and the investment that you've already made in your web apps and get more out of them by bringing them to the store. So we put together this kind of chart to show you the progression that your web apps can make through the Windows platform. So they're all the same technology. You start with a website, and then we strongly encourage that you do what Kevin had showed us and take advantage of the metadata by adding pins, adding tile sizes, adding your live tiles and your share charms, and
Not a lot of effort to get it in there either.
not a lot of effort. And we're really trying to figure out what the next step for that is as well, to be able to add even more features to your web app when they're on Windows, and kind of make the best experience possible for your users when they're on Windows. And then when you want to get it to the next level, when you want to start using some of those native components, you use the web view inside of a JavaScript store app. Of course, you could use a XAML or a C++ app as well, but you use the web view to point to your hosted application. And then you can submit it to the store. You have access to all those APIs. And then you can start building on top of that and building native functionality. We looked at notifications here today, but any WinRT API that you'd like to use and incorporate in your app can be written right on top of your web app and shipped through the store.
Right, and as you were pointing out, you can leverage the skills of your developers. So you can do it in C#,
That's right.
.NET code, or you can use JavaScript all the way like we've been using today.
Yeah. The point being, we're welcoming you to bring your hosted application, your web apps, to the Windows platform. We think that it's going to be a great experience for you as a developer and a great experience for your users as well.
Right. So yeah, Jeff, I think the other thing that we didn't really hit on much is, as you bring some of that code over to the platform, we do a really good job of producing the bytecode for the JavaScript and making it run faster. So you can choose, like, if you want to bring some of your front-end components more into the native app, or leave them on the web if you're concerned about performance there too.
Yeah, that's right. Once you're in the store app, you have the ability to continue to add those features to your web app, which are going to perform great. Our web app is JITted and runs JavaScript just as fast as it does in the browser. In general, your apps are going to run in our web view just like they do in the browser. The only limitation that you might run into is we don't support plugins. So if you're heavily relying on Flash or something like that, then you should probably keep your app in the browser.
Right. So I think that wraps up our demos and such for today, and we have some time after for questions.
Right. I think first we do have a few set of headphones to give out. So Kevin and I were trying to figure out the best way.
The right questions, right?
Yeah.
There's a couple good ones we can ask. They might know the answers. So how do you want to do it?
Yeah, if we had enough for everyone, we would,
we'd be throwing them into the audience right now.
Yeah. So first question, first one to I don't know.
So don't shout it out loud. Raise your hand if you know the answer. We'll close our eyes and point in your direction and find you. We only got 3.
Okay. You want to start?
I'm going to start. How many people watched the keynote today in person or streaming? Quite a bit.
No headphones for answering that question.
No, that's a simple one. This is a super easy question. So if you get your hand up first, Stephen, and you know it, it's going to be great. There was a gentleman who was doing a demo on Windows RT components, and he had a shirt on. Does anyone? I saw that hand go up first. Do you know what his shirt said?
There you go.
That's one set.
All right, here you go, sir.
The lightning round. Well, if there was a tie, I was going to ask what his name was. Anybody remember his name? Oh, that wouldn't even.
Yeah, there you go.
It's Harry. There's another thing that we talked about in the keynote today. Did you want to ask?
So we open sourced something very exciting in the JavaScript community. I think I saw this hand first.
I think I saw it.
WinJS. That's right. So WinJS, for those of you who don't know, is a library that we ship with our store apps. And it's an optional library. You can use it if you want. You can use your own frameworks if you want. But it basically has all of the Windows-type components built in, so you can create them very easily, and they're going to match the other store components that are there. And now it's open source.
It's open source.
You cannot just use it in Windows Store apps. You can use it in websites and other apps and wherever you want.
We didn't really have a good third question planned, but I think I'll go for one.
Okay.
Has anyone forked the project? Oh, I was hoping for a fork.
I don't think we gave them the GitHub repo yet, so that'd
for
be
WinJS?
Oh, for WinJS?
The GitHub repo was on the screen in the keynote.
Let's give that guy headphones for looking at our GitHub repo. I mean, that is exciting. Come on. Forget about the third question. Right. That's just impressive by itself.
So Jeff, I did put a slide together. All the code we were showing you today We have our examples up on GitHub, and then also the web app template is on the CodePlex site.
Complex, right. Okay, so we have a few minutes for questions. You have any?
So you have all those metadata tags and link tags for icons and icons and stuff like that. But you also showed the JSON. Is there a way to use the config JSON to automatically put those tags in your HTML so you don't have to be fiddling with them?
So the question was, we showed the meta tags on the page, and then we showed the config object in the store app. Is there any way to basically combine those two, right? So one of the things that the config object basically is read in the store app. So we do have the ability there, if you have those items on your page, we're going to read them in the store app as well. In the web app template, it'll honor any tiles that you have or any share data that you have there, but it doesn't work the other way around. It doesn't actually, the browser itself won't read that config object, but we like that idea, and we're looking into seeing how we can, make configs for your web apps as well in the browser.
So it's not changing your code, it's just the environment is reading it and doing it.
So what the web app template does is it actually injects a lot of code into your page in the web view. So it can alter your DOM, it can inject additional JavaScript in if you like. Some web apps might you might want them to look exactly the same in the browser as they are as a store app. Other ones you might want to, a lot of times we see people hide their web navigation, especially if it's not touch friendly, and use the Windows Store navigation so you can inject the CSS to do that, and that all happens through the config object.
I think we had another question at the mic.
Yeah.
In your demonstration, you showed touch of some of the Cordova code. I think it was for geolocation. To what extent can you use Cordova code? And in a kind of reverse question, how is this a substitute, this system, for creating a Windows Phone application that you would use in the Universal app as opposed to creating a PhoneGap-based application?
Yeah.
What are the advantages of using this over PhoneGap?
Yeah.
So PhoneGap on Windows actually is a really unique experience because what you do on Windows 8, you add an additional JavaScript file to your Windows project. So you don't actually have to use a web view or anything in the PhoneGap project. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to either call the WinRT APIs or call the PhoneGap APIs. Now, what I did in this project is I actually used the same Windows 8 JavaScript file to run both on the phone and on Windows 8. And when we say that they're the same, types of projects, literally that same code, including the Cordova code, runs on, Windows Phone 8.1 the same way it does on Windows 8.1. Questions?
And we'll also be up here in the front if you wanted to come up and ask questions. If you don't want to ask over the mic, that's fine. Again, I'm Kevin Hill from the web app team, and this is Jeff.
Jeff Bertoff from Developer Relations. So
All right, thank you guys.
thank you very much for coming.